Right, in the studio we have Richinda Taylor. Good morning.
Good morning, Clive.
Right, I'll tell you what, do you want to just move your mic a bit closer to you? There we go. Yeah, we are. Lovely, lovely. It's live.
Is that better?
That's much better. Lovely, lovely. And thank you for taking time out to come into Ignition Radio this morning.
Thank you for having me, Clive.
Okay, right now, EVA, Emerging from Violence and Abuse. What was the rest of the title?
It's EVA Women's Aid.
Women's Aid, there we go. Right, now, I've just been having a look at some of these domestic violence statistics, and all I can say, Richinda, is it's just staggering. It really is.
Yes, I think what you need to bear in mind, Clive, is that the figures you're probably referring to are about reported incidents of domestic violence. What we know is that is only just a small part of the story, because at least half of the women that we work with don't go through the criminal justice system, so they choose not to report the offences, and we support women whether they are in the criminal justice system or not. So we know that, as I mentioned, at least 50% of the women we work with aren't included in those figures that you've got before you.
Yeah, because that's what actually comes out loud and clear, that this sort of domestic violence and abuse is hidden.
A lot of it is hidden, and there is some misconception that domestic abuse is only about violence, and it isn't. What domestic abuse is a pattern of behaviour that can include sexual abuse, financial abuse, psychological, emotional abuse. It's a whole pattern of behaviour. It's not always or just or only about violence.
Yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely staggering. I mean, looking at these figures, about 4,000 women die each year due to domestic violence. That's a huge sum.
It is, and 2 women every week are killed in the UK by their former or current partner. It's a frightening statistic, you're right.
And of course it's widespread across the UK.
Yes, absolutely, and domestic abuse doesn't care about age or geography or social status. It can affect anybody at any time in their life.
Yeah, that's what I find out about this, is that it doesn't discriminate, does it?
Not at all, not at all. And statistics show that probably 30% of women will experience a domestic abuse incident at some point in their life. And it can affect younger women and older women and all ages in between. Some people think it's just about younger women, and of course it's not.
Right. Now, we'll start with the questions. What is domestic violence?
Well, domestic violence, I think you probably mean domestic abuse, because it isn't just about violence, as I mentioned before. It's a pattern of behaviour. It can be experienced by the victim over decades. It isn't necessarily a one-off incident, and perhaps an incident of domestic violence might be just a one-off incident. But the abuse that I'm talking about, and a lot of the women that we work with experience, is about a pattern of behaviour that can be experienced over a long period of time. And that can be psychological, emotional, sexual, financial. There are lots of ways that women and victims in general can experience domestic abuse.
And who can experience domestic abuse?
Well, anybody. I mean, the vast majority of victims will be female. We know that. The Home Office tells us it's about 75% of victims are female. So far and away the vast majority are female. But anybody of any age, of any location, of any culture, any religion, it doesn't discriminate at all.
And how common is the domestic abuse?
I think you'll find it's a lot more common than most people will imagine. And there are some women, Clive, who don't actually realise or understand that they're in an abusive relationship because it's so embedded, or they've lived with it for so long that it becomes normalised. It's a way of life for them, but actually it is an abusive relationship.
Yeah, because it is very, very common, but again, as you said before, it isn't reported enough, is it?
Not at all. I mean, the Cleveland Police will report that, will say that reporting figures are increasing, and that's good news for us, because whilst some people might interpret that to mean that the rate of domestic abuse is increasing, it actually means the rate of reporting it is increasing. And that, for me, says that women are having confidence in the police system, that they're believing the police, they're trusting the police, and that they're seeking support from agencies such as EVA to help them through that process. So increasing those reporting figures is absolutely a positive step.
And what are the effects of domestic abuse on women?
On women and on families, it affects every part of a victim's life. It can be that work days are lost, so there's an effect on the community and on the economy as well. It affects you emotionally, it affects you physically. There are lots of ways that a woman can experience trauma after domestic abuse or sexual violence incidents, and so the effects can be long-lasting. Again, that's about how a victim, how their resilience is. It might be far more traumatic for some people than it is for others, but there's absolutely no doubt that it affects every part of your life if you're a victim of domestic abuse.
And what are the signs of abuse?
Well, if you, as we've said before, Clive, it can affect anybody, and it could be that somebody you see every day, somebody you're standing next to in the queue at the supermarket, could be a victim of domestic abuse. Sometimes the signs just aren't there outwardly. However, what we do encourage in victims when they come to talk to us, when they come to make contact with EVA, is that they tell us about what's been going on in their life in general. Because as I mentioned, for example, I mentioned financial abuse. It could be that a victim isn't able to have their own money, they are restricted to what they can spend, they might have money taken off them if they're earning, they might be allowed only a certain amount to go to the shops and have to account for every penny. So that's a form of abuse that some people don't even realise is actually abusive. So the signs might be hidden, but they might be quite evident if you know what to look for.
Another statistic that I've been reading on my notes is the fact that men who abuse women have been abused themselves. You might be referring more to sexual abuse there. Yeah.
It's what we often find in a former life. I was a probation officer and worked with sex offenders, and what you often find is that people who go on to abuse were abused themselves, but that doesn't necessarily mean that all people who are abused go on to be abusers. Does that make sense?
Of course,
it goes one way, but not necessarily the other way. With domestic abuse, it could be that the perpetrator has seen domestic abuse, domestic violence in their lifetime. It could be that they've grown up with it, so it's familiar to them, and they repeat that pattern themselves as a perpetrator. So it doesn't always follow that that's the case, but obviously it can be.
Yeah. Now, if I know that a woman is being abused, then how do I respond? What do I do?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would want anybody who has something like that disclosed to them to ensure that the person who is disclosing that information is safe at that time. And if they are feeling unsafe, absolutely the first thing they need to do is call the police. If they're in an immediately urgent emergency position, they need to inform the police. So the priority is always to make sure that the victim is safe. You would need to offer that woman support. I'm assuming that the victim is a woman here, but it needn't necessarily be. You would need to offer the victim some support and absolutely refer them on to specialist services, because services like EVA, we do have staff who are qualified and experienced, very knowledgeable about how to work with women, to encourage them to look at their lives and to start that healing process. So the first thing to do is to make sure they're safe, and then to refer them on to specialist services like EVA Women's Aid. And
the police are called. Are we still talking about that if the domestic abuse is really, really bad, that the woman will be taken to a safe house?
That's an option for her. I mean, we do provide accommodation at EVA. We have 3 residential houses in the Redcar Cleveland area that are used for women who are fleeing domestic abuse and sexual violence. So that is absolutely an option, and we can provide accommodation if necessary. And women can stay in those properties for as long as they need to. It might be 1 night, it might be 6 months, however long they need to, that's available to them. So it might be that they need to leave a situation immediately because it's just so dangerous, too risky for them to stay there. But that isn't always the case. They might not necessarily have to leave their home. If women choose not to leave their home, what we do encourage them to do is to have a safety plan. So it's to look at their own safety and to go back into the home in a managed way so that they can keep themselves as safe as possible.
Now, one thing I do know, finding out through my notes again, is that women who suffer this type of abuse, they stay with their partners, and this happens time and time and time again. The husband or boyfriend or whoever, it makes excuses. Oh, I won't do it again. I won't do it again. And then it happens again. Now, how do you respond to that?
Well, some victims live in the hope that the behaviour will change. The reality is that's unlikely to do so unless the perpetrator seeks some help to look at his or her own behaviour. And, you know, we often find, again, statistics will say that a woman will experience domestic abuse incidents between 30 and 35 before she reports an offence or seeks support for it. And as I mentioned to you before at the top of the show, Clive, it's a pattern of behaviour, so it's unlikely to be the first incident. There will have been other incidents before. I've forgotten what your original question was.
It's the pattern of abuse, and then the perpetrator tries to cover up by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I won't do it again." Yeah, that often happens, and you know, that may be the case, but generally we find with victims we work with that it isn't the case, and if it happens once, it very well may happen again. And so, as I mentioned, if women do choose to stay in their own homes, or in the accommodation where they are, or where they're at risk from their partner, we try to work with them to do that in a very managed way so that they have a safety plan and can keep themselves as safe as possible. Yeah, because I find what I've just been mentioning before is that the woman will stay at home because of the children. That's often the case. And particularly in December, we find that women will do that. They want to stay at home for Christmas, to keep the children together, to keep the family together, and then January tends to be a very busy month for us because a lot of women find it unbearable after that festive period. So, yeah, I mean, children are a massive factor, of course, and a lot of women will stay in that abusive relationship because they are concerned about the children, and often because they could be more at risk if they leave. You know, we know that one of the most risky periods for a woman is if she leaves, and that period immediately after she's left her partner. So it's really key that if she does have that courage to take that step and to leave, that we find her a safe house where she can go, a safe place to live with her children. Now, the thing is, I do notice as well, is that, and I'm not being derogatory when I say this, but people, if they experience abuse with neighbours, sometimes they don't want to get involved. Why do you think that is? Well, there is this, there was an old idea that domestic abuse was something that you kept in behind closed doors and that you didn't get involved. It was none of your business. And at one time, that was also the attitude of the police as well. They didn't get involved in domestic abuse or domestic violence cases. Thankfully, that isn't the case now. And I would urge anybody, if they are aware of any incident going on around them, that they inform the police of that. You know, they have a duty to ensure that people are kept safe. We have a responsibility towards each other. You know, this is what a good citizen will do. We are responsible not only for ourselves, but some responsibility for the safety and health and care and well-being of others as well. So if you are aware that something like that is going on, absolutely, I would urge people to contact the police and inform them. You might actually save a life doing that. Exactly. And of course, Christmas, as we touched on before, is a very busy time of year for your organisation. Yeah, that's correct. And it's a key time of year. We know tensions run high. We know families get together. There are tensions from that. We know there might be additional alcohol consumed. Money might be an issue. There's the pressure of making sure the children are okay, that your family's okay. There's lots of additional tensions at that time of the year that heighten emotions and that potentially put victims more at risk. I think it's a case with women when they're in this situation. It's sort of protectionism in a way, isn't it? Especially at Christmas, I say, with the kids and all that and the pressures. Yeah. And you know, they want to try and keep the home together if they can. And, you know, we want that too, if that's the best thing for the woman and for the family. If keeping everybody together is what the woman wants, we will help her to do that in a safe and managed way. And of course, women want to ensure that their children have the best Christmas that they possibly can have and to provide that for them. And
that increases tension and puts added pressure on a victim too.
And you said that you're very, very busy in the January period. Is this because of the sort of the overreach after Christmas,
yes.
or is it just that you are absolutely busy?
It's both of those really, because you know, you might know yourself, it's a new year, it's a new start. People want to make changes in their lives, and sometimes for women who have been experiencing domestic abuse, it's the right time for them to make that change. So we often get new referrals to us, new self-referrals as well, women turning up on our shop front doorstep, often with nothing than the clothes that they're wearing, you know, wanting that help, wanting to get away from an abusive relationship. And that new year, that new start can be what triggers women to do that. But also because they've experienced that period which, for thankfully most families is a good experience, for them might not have been so, and that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back, really.
Right. Now, let's look at the legality of women who fight back, in the sense of what is sort of the legality, like, you know, a woman's had enough and she just turns on her husband or boyfriend and decides to take matters into her own hands.
Well, I'm never going to encourage anybody to be violent. You know,
No.
violence is never the answer, whether you are a victim or not. You know, you become a perpetrator yourself if you do that. So I would never encourage anyone to be a perpetrator of violence. However, I think the point you're making is about self-defense, are
Yes,
you? That
yeah,
if a woman
yeah.
finds that she's in a position where she needs to defend herself from a violent attack, obviously your instinct as a human being is to protect yourself in any way that you can. And you know, you mentioned the legalities. Well, the criminal justice system will take each case on its merits, and you know, they would look at each case as what the perpetrator was doing and how the victim responded to that.
Right. Okay, we're talking to Richinda Taylor from EVA. Right, now, question, what services do EVA offer?
Well, we've got a range of services available to victims, Clive. We're the only agency in the area that provides a full wraparound service for victims of domestic abuse and sexual violence, in that we provide everything from accommodation to follow-up service when victims have finished their interventions with us and moved on. So, as I mentioned to you before, we've got 3 properties in the Redcar and Cleveland area that we use as safe houses where women can come and if they're fleeing domestic abuse or sexual violence, they can come stay with us for as long as they need to. They're very comfortable houses. They're each woman will have her own individual bedroom with her own key fob, and then this shared living spaces, kitchen and bathroom. But they're very nice properties and very comfortable. If a woman comes to us for accommodation, she would be allocated a caseworker. So we have a range of key workers and caseworkers at EVA, and she would be allocated to the one who would best suit her needs, because we do understand that all women who come to our doors have different and very varying needs. So in order to respond best to those needs, we create a support plan for her. So that she knows and that we know exactly what sort of things are going to be happening over the next days, weeks, months that she's with us. So the services that we can offer, and apart from accommodation, we have an IDVA, which is an independent domestic violence advocate, and an ISVA, independent sexual violence advocate. They are our 2 highly qualified and experienced staff who will assist women through the criminal justice process if they choose to report the offences. And what that means is that we will go to court with them. We will have a pre-court visit with them so they can have a look round. We'll accompany them to solicitors if they want us to. We'll talk through the process with them so they know what to expect, give them an idea of the kind of questions they'll be asked, and attend with them if that's what they'd like us to do. So that's the IDVA and the ISVA. We have a whole IDVA and ISVA service as well, so there are caseworkers within that team who will do the other bits of support with the woman, the other kind of welfare support and emotional support that they might need. So on top of that, we also have a counselling service, and again, we're the only agency in the area that has a specialist children's counsellor who works with children and young people from 4 up to 18. After 18, they'd be referred to our our adult counselling service, where we have a team, we have a counselling coordinator and a team of volunteer and paid counsellors who will help women look at their issues and help them with the healing process. In addition to that, we have a families worker who works with a more holistic approach, so working with the whole family. And we have IAG service, which is information, advice and guidance. And our IAG worker, Julie, will help women with claiming benefits, with looking at CV creation, opening a bank account, financial management, budgeting, employment skills, applying for jobs, interview skills, all those types of things to help women move on if that's what they want to do. And you know, we encourage women to access that service, even if they only have one appointment with Julie, to look at the options that are available to them, which might be not just employment, it could be training or education, volunteering opportunities. So we encourage them to have at least one appointment with Julie just to talk through what options are available to her. In addition to that, we have a schools project where we have Rachel is our schools project coordinator, and she goes into schools to do awareness raising about sexual violence and domestic abuse. And in addition to that, we have a drop-in facility at our shopfront premises on the High Street in Redcar. You can come in any time between 9 and 5 during the week. You don't need an appointment, but you can come in if you want to have a chat with somebody. We run programmes as well. We run the Freedom Programme, which is a nationally accredited programme, and we also have a range of other programmes that we've written ourselves that we deliver to our the women who work with us. We offer volunteering opportunities. I mentioned to you before, we've just appointed a volunteering coordinator who is going to be running a volunteer drive. So I would urge your listeners, Clive, if they're interested in becoming a volunteer at EVA and you're over 21, we do like our volunteers to be over 21 and female, so unfortunately half your listeners won't be eligible, but because of the nature of the work, we are a staff that's all female, our board is all female and our volunteers are all female at the moment. So I would urge your listeners to, if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, look out for those adverts, come along to one of the meetings to find out a bit more about what volunteering entails. And then we have our support groups as well. So we run a range of groups, service user groups, focus groups, and support groups which might involve something like a craft session, but that encourages discussion. So women can come along, meet other women who've been through it as well, who've had similar experiences to them, and who just want to chat and support each other. And then we get some discussion going as well, but you might be doing that while you're sewing or painting or various other craft activities that we offer.
Right, and
quite a lot there.
Just so fascinated. So you have a wide-ranging amount of services that you offer.
Yes, we do. We also offer professional surgery. So one day a week we have various professionals, which might be the police or solicitors or some health workers or a banking professional, who will come in and throw an open surgery so women can come in and make an appointment with them or just drop in to see them if they want some advice. That's all free. We provide those free, and the professionals give up their time free to come and do that as well, to work with our women. So we offer those on a weekly basis too.
And you say that all your staff are all volunteers?
No, we have a bank of volunteer staff. We have volunteer counsellors, and we have other volunteers who help us with fundraising and that kind of thing, or admin work in the office. But we have a team of staff. We have 22 paid staff, of which I am one, at EVA. So we've got a wide range of well qualified, very experienced, knowledgeable, dedicated, brilliant staff who are there to meet the needs of the women we work with in a range of opportunities.
And of course, if you want to become a volunteer or otherwise, the training that you offer must be very extensive and very thorough.
Yes, what we do is we offer volunteers a basic training about domestic abuse awareness, domestic violence awareness and sexual violence awareness. So everybody would have the basic training. After that, we would tailor the training to what particular area they're interested in. So, for example, if they wanted to be a counsellor, we wouldn't give them information on how to do fundraising and vice versa. So whatever particular field they're interested in, we would give them the additional training on top of the basic training.
Yes, because it's a case that if you're a specialist in a specialist field, then that's what you'll concentrate on.
Yes, absolutely. And it might be that a volunteer has perhaps an hour or 2 hours a week and they want to come and help us with some office work, and we're very happy with that. It might be some data inputting, it might be putting the goodie bags together. I gave you a goodie bag this morning, Clive, with bits and pieces in. Our volunteers help bag those up for us because we go through quite a lot of them, as you can imagine. It might be they want to do some counselling, it might be they want to help with the craft group, it might be they have a particular skill to offer that they want to share with groups of women, say photography or something like that, or some IT skill. So we encourage volunteers to use their own particular resources as well, whatever they're particularly good at. We ask them to share with us if they would like to.
And the 3 safe houses that you have in the area, they're open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year?
Yes, they are. They're not staffed permanently, but we do have an on-call rota so that there are staff available 24 hours a day, and we have an on-call phone system so that if women do need to call us for any reason, they can use that phone if it's an emergency. However, the rule still applies. If they are in an immediate need, we encourage them to call the police or ambulance or whatever their particular need is, rather than calling us first and then us doing it, which just slows the process down.
And, of course, how do you get funding for your organisation?
Well, our funding comes entirely from grant funding, donations and our own fundraising. We don't get any automatic statutory funding, which means that most of my job is about applying for grant funding, managing that grant funding and reporting back on that grant funding. So a lot of my work is about that, and doing things like this, getting EVA's name known so that we encourage victims to come forward. That raises our profile as well, so that's a big part of my job too. So we have a range of major grant funders, including the Big Lottery, Lloyds Bank Foundation, the PCC, the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Ballinger Trust, Clinical Commissioning Group, CCG, and the Rape Support Fund, which is from the Ministry of Justice, and the Home Office. So we get funding from all those, but it's only what we apply for.
And of course, if people want to know more about your organisation, you have a website?
We do. We have a website. It's eva.org.uk. It's currently being revamped at the moment. We're making it a bit more exciting and updating it, but you can still get onto the site, but it's going to look quite different over the next few weeks. We have Twitter, we have Facebook. You can contact us on those. We have a phone line, obviously, 01642 490 677. So anybody can contact us on that. We have an email address, info@eva.org.uk. You can contact us there. You can come into our shop front premises, which is at 86 The High Street in Redcar. We're opposite Wilkinson's, so we're always happy for people to come in and see us there. You can write to us at that address, 86 High Street, Redcar. You can write to us there. You can leave a message on our answer phone. You can contact us in any of those ways, and we will always respond to you, and we will do that within 2 working days.
That's fantastic. And of course, the bottom line is it's about information, but it's about talking about this subject as well.
Yes, absolutely. And some women want to do that. They want to talk about their situation. They want to offload about it. They don't necessarily always want to do something about it. And that's fine, if that's what women choose to do. They just want to come, they want to find out a bit more information. If you just want to pick up a leaflet, that's absolutely fine. Come in, make an appointment to talk to someone, or talk to somebody if you want to straight away. We will encourage anybody to do that. Look at what your situation is, find out another angle, just talk over the issues. If that's all you want to do, that's fine with us.
And of course, the message that is underlined in big red letters is don't be shy about talking about domestic violence. If you are being suffered by this, come forward and
absolutely.
Talk about it. And of course, the best thing to do is go to the police first.
Yes, it is. If you're in immediate danger, go to the police. That isn't a necessary requirement to contact EVA, though. We don't encourage you or discourage you to go to the police. What we will do is encourage you to do what you want to do. So it's always your choice. We will support you if you want to report the offences. We will support you if you don't. Please come forward and seek that support. We've got women who will work with you. We've got staff who will work with you, and we will do that in a positive way to meet your needs at your pace at a time that suits you.
Well, at the end of the day, it's organisations like yourself, Richinda, that lessen the burden of domestic violence on women.
I would hope so, yes.
Absolutely.
I would hope so.
And of course, all the information that you've heard today will be on our website, www.ignitionradio.co.uk. Richinda, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for having me here today, Clive. It's been great to meet you and to be here and to talk about EVA. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And of course, as I say, best power for everything in the future as well. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Cheers. There we are, Richinda Taylor from, of course, EVA. And if you'd like to know more, it's www.ignitionradio.co.uk, and of course all the information will be there as well.